Large cappuccino. Orders up.
Welcome back. We're recording this a few days before St. Patrick's Day. Yeah. So for those other fellow Irish people out there like myself, happy almost St. Patrick's Day.
That's exciting time of year. It's a fun time.
Yeah, it's going to be hopefully a fun and joyous weekend. The weather's beautiful out here like we just said the last episode. Yep, so nice. Perfect time to go out. It is still nice weather. Thank goodness. No more bad weather, please. If you're listening weather, thank you.
Please, we're done with that.
But hopefully hopefully you're going to eat some corned beef and cabbage.
Might be on the menu for the weekend.
Hopefully be on the
maybe.
menu, yeah.
I think just spending some fun time outside this weekend, just getting some fresh air, some sunshine.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And with the fresh air and sunshine, the change in the clock springing ahead again once again, a lot of people just switch sports.
Yes, it's
a lot of people just switch sports, right? We're not in the winter season anymore. It's time for spring. It's time for baseball. It's time for tennis. No more ice hockey, unfortunately.
Sadly.
I know, it's a little sad. But
sadly, that season is done. Yeah. But there'll be tryouts and spring season and everything before you know it.
No more indoor track, outdoor track. Mm-hmm. Welcome to spring sports.
Spring chaos.
We're here, yeah. Which is kind of the fun topic for us a little bit today is off-season, but also transitioning sports seasons for those that might be multi-sport athletes or continue their sport but in an AAU or travel or other league type capacity. So kind of be a fun and exciting conversation I think today. A little bit not super focused on one mental skill. I know like our last few episodes kind of have been, but kind of just more of a generalized I think discussion, which I think is really cool because this is definitely the time of year for that. So
yeah, and I think it's a really important discussion to have too, because a lot of the times we just kind of get in the groove, like we're just on autopilot. It's like, okay, season's done, on to this, on to that, schedule's changing, we're going through the motions, but it's really important to actually think about those transitions, right? Make sure that we're doing them intentionally, that we're putting ourselves in the best spot possible to close one chapter and then step into the next, right? Doing everything we can to prepare for that. So it's good stuff to talk about.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll probably share a lot of personal stories, I feel like, more with this episode than maybe
lots
some
of transitions.
But that was something that I always used to kind of think about and think through, especially where, I'd go from, when I used to run, I'd go from like cross-country season and then very different because then we'd go indoor track and then you're kind of competing in one space. There's not a lot of indoor track facilities out there. So you wait, you have a later meet, you have a meet this day. You might practice, then you have a few hours, then you have to go to your meet. And trying not to piece together because a lot of us are student athletes out there for the most part, but how can I balance the changing of seasons with the changing of my workload and course load as well.
Schedule, all that stuff.
Yeah. So we're going to break it down and get into it, hopefully a little bit, touch on just about everything.
Let's do it.
Yeah. You first.
I guess looking back on my personal experience, we'll start there. Being a multi-sport athlete, there wasn't always an off season, right? There wasn't always a clear change. There was a lot of overlap too, especially going into college when seasons were a little bit longer, the timing was a little bit different. There was quite a few months where I would be playing two sports at the same time. So it would be softball practice in the morning, or it's like softball lift in the morning, then hockey practice, and straight to softball practice. So it's not transitioning sport seasons as a whole, but transitioning from practice to practice and workload. Yeah. Being able to manage all of that, making sure I was still prioritizing like my own well-being, my own self-care, getting my schoolwork done, having time for friends, for family, for checking in with all that, and just being really intentional with how I scheduled it, but also being able to change the mindset from one sport to another, right? I'm not going to have the same mindset going into a softball game that I did going into a hockey game. So it's being able to kind of shift gears and do whatever you need to do in order to be present and be in the moment. And that's something that I struggled with a lot, to be honest, was being able to actually be where my feet are, right? Being able to slow things down and feel in control and just be present and in the moment. So I think that's a really important thing to work on and to acknowledge is what can I do to put myself in the best spot possible to focus on where I am right now. So that was something that I had to spend a lot of time working through. But yeah, it was a fun time.
Nice. I was absolutely amazing at everything.
I believe it. I believe it.
No, not at all. I think the biggest thing, like you're saying, for me, I'm a very like structured and organized person, even though I seem quite chaotic, I feel like sometimes. And it's because I have a structure that I can play around with everything that I kind of do. So my planner's been my best friend for like years. Everything's written out. Everything is.
Yeah, you like to control it, right? Like.
Yeah, it's a super big controllable. I can at least control at least the hour, what I'm going to try to spend my hours doing, and then also like I'm not one of those people where it's like 7:03 to 7:07 bathroom time, 7:07 to 7:10 snack, but like hours, have a schedule free time, schedule things I need to do, study, homework. Like I did back in the day. But I think that's a big piece for me that helped me to eventually like fight out the burnout that I experienced and kind of went through from running, because it was year round. Transitioning running is just, you're adding more or less layers, more or less running. Exactly.
Perfect. That sounds awful.
It was awesome.
I believe, yep, for you it was.
Totally awesome.
For you, I'm sure it was.
And a lot of people, they do like running out there. It's a great way to kind of, be active and stay active. But for me, it was, I just eventually got super kind of burnt out with it. And then in college, I, got offers to run in college, but I was like, nah, I want to play tennis instead. So ended up doing that. And to your point, it's like, oh, cool. Like it's the off season. It's like, nah, you got to lift. You got to be doing other things outside of it. You still have to stay in shape. You get your off season practice planned for coach. But I think the biggest thing is that I kind of experienced, I guess it's just like if I wrote out my day, like I would feel a lot better. Like I'm scheduling out things that I need to do, want to do, reach all those self-care points while also reaching all the things that I need to get done.
Yeah, it's really important to prioritize those things, right? Because the second we stop trying to plan or trying to think about it, we're going to forget about it, and then we're going to fall into that spiral of burnout, of just being unmotivated or overwhelmed or whatever it is. So yeah, it's a really good point, making sure we prioritize that.
Yeah. And we forget to do simple better. If we do complex really well. And I think that's the big thing that I see with a lot of athletes. They're doing all these different leagues and sports teams and multiple teams and one of the same seasons. And I'm just like, just pick a couple and like, what do you, like, you're just practicing and going for it. Like, what are you doing to have fun and enjoying yourself? Like, you're not a professional athlete yet.
No, you're not getting paid enough for this.
I'm not getting paid. You guys are getting paid. Right. No. So it's really just trying to, like you said, prioritize, but like, what do you want to get accomplished in a day, right? These things are going to be set in stone. That you're going to hopefully work out or exercise or go to practice. You have school, have time for homework, but where can you add those fun things, like talking with friends, eating, maybe fitting in a nap or something in there, meditation, whatever it may be, trying to piece those things in part of your day. And that's something that, took years. Like we got our like planner freshman year of high school, and I was like, what is this device? Throw it to the wayside, and I was like, wait, I can remember things by writing them down better? This is craziness.
I was the type of person where I would buy a planner every single year, and it would last about 2 weeks, and then I would just fall off of it, and it did not work for me. So if you're the type of person that is in the same boat, try and get in the habit of using that, of planning it, because it is going to make your life so much easier.
I almost want to go to my backpack that's like right there and grab it.
You can if you need to.
No, it can stay in there. Today is planned out. It's
there you go.
It's a fairly light day for me today.
Feeling
pretty nice and easy. But I think the biggest thing, and I know we've talked about burnout before in an episode, but just to recap what those like big three things are. If you are experiencing burnout, right? If you feel like a lot and way too much, right? You do need a planned off season, right? You need to have a planned off season. Most of that is to fight what I'm about to talk about. The three main things with burnout are exhaustion, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, whatever it may be. Devaluation, so everything kind of starts to matter less.
Not worth it anymore.
Not worth it. Yeah, the motivation pieces start to die down. And then the reduced accomplishment, like what was I getting out of this, and I don't feel those things anymore, whether it was actual rewards or being number one or being varsity, being the best. And now it's like, none of that's there. It's what it is. Yeah. And if you experience all three of those things over a long period of time, usually leads to one of two options: sport dropout or sport transfer. Yeah. I just talked about this with one of my athletes the other day. It's like, so it was a really cool conversation. And you feel like, for us, when we've been meeting with someone for a while, we're like, it's just this maintenance phase of just check-ins and making sure they're doing the right stuff. And then it's cool to kind of be like, wow, no, we can have still really cool, complex, and maybe more intense conversations than we thought. He's like, I was, definitely going through burnout. And I was like, yeah, it makes sense, because I just looked back and I was like, yeah, you were gone for 3 weeks, saw you, gone for another 3 weeks.
Yeah. You start to drift off a little bit. Yeah, you start
to drift off. And it could be for the smallest things. For this athlete, for this particular athlete, it was the car ride to go to the extra practice that he was doing. He's like, that car ride was sucked. He's like, I hated doing it. I like being at practice, it was fine, I would do it. And then the car ride back, it just sucked. And I was like, yeah. And it's important to know those things. Part of it is a little bit like, is there ways for you maybe to try to enjoy those car rides?
Yeah,
but
what
if it's
can we
just
do?
like that extra little thing sometimes, it's just, you don't have to do it. You can stop.
Yeah.
And a building in an off season, I think, is something that's super crucial.
Definitely create your own, right? If you're one of the athletes, like we were just talking about, where you don't have one, where you're going right from one sport to another, or there's some overlap, figure out little ways to add it in and do what you need to do.
Yeah.
And it might feel impossible, especially if your schedule is still really busy, but making that a top priority is going to pay off a lot more in the long run, right? More isn't always better at those points. Sometimes taking a step back, taking some stuff off of our plate to do things that are going to make us feel more human, feel more like us, is going to pay off a lot more than going to that extra practice.
Yeah.
So.
And that's what this particular athlete and, his parents decided, which is cool. It's like a team decision. You know, they can feel a little bit like a professional athlete at the moment. They made the right choice because that's what they based it off of, was what do the pros do? The pros have an off season.
Yeah.
They know it's important. They know they need it. They know they need to recharge the batteries, right? And I think there's a lot of, I always try to use those analogies, right? It's like recharging your phone at night or refueling the gas tank.
Yeah, it's important.
It's super important. That's what they decided. They're not competing in the fall. They're going to take a break, take it easy. It's like, that's what the pros do. I was like, yeah, it is. I was like, good. I was like, I usually try to loop in the conversations of like what pro athletes do because we look up to them, but like obviously they're doing it for a reason.
Yeah, clearly it works.
Yeah.
Clearly works. But yeah, I don't know like when it became so common to just like not have an off season, go year round with sports. Like it's just such an accepted thing now, and I think an expectation for a lot of sports, especially like I know hockey's a big one where it's like, okay, you finish season, you go right into tryouts, and then you find a spring team, you find a summer league, and you're playing year round. And then the athlete that doesn't do that and decides to maybe play soccer over the summer or take a break from their sport, they suddenly feel like they're so far behind because they're not getting that practice in, they're not getting those reps. And in reality, you're probably not missing out on that much because you can still do other things that are going to allow you to still compete, still improve.
Just fight burnout too.
Yeah, but fight burnout, right? So long term, it's going to be a lot better to take care of yourself and the other things that you need instead of just going year round, losing interest, losing motivation. And all those things that you just mentioned.
And
so.
especially when you're a student athlete, like we both have been, it can bleed into school or affect school. And especially if you're doing way too much and the grades start to suffer, you won't be doing sports.
Nope.
You will not be allowed to do sports. You'll have to fix the
ineligible.
schoolwork. You'll be ineligible. The dreaded I word.
Oof, yeah.
Ineligible.
It's a big one.
Whisper it next time like ASMR. But I think the cool thing with off seasons, when you do hopefully build it into your schedule, one, please build it. And I have a couple of athletes that don't. You know who you are if you're watching or listening to this episode. Build it in. It's like he has one of the athletes in particular I'm thinking of, it's built in for him right now, and he's very upset about it. He thinks he's going to lose his edge. He has a game 2 days after, and he's like, I didn't do anything or work out for the past 11 days, 14 days, 2 weeks. Like, I was like, I kept trying to remind him and reiterate. I go, I cannot wait for you to go in this game and play the best you ever have because you just had a 2-week break.
I was just going to say, I bet you it's going to be the best game he's had in a long time.
I can't wait. And I'm not going to say I told you so. I will, because that's how I roll with that sessions.
Sometimes you have to.
But I'm just going to be like, this is why this is important, right? You have to have a structured, some sort of off season, even if it's a couple of weeks. You brought up hockey. The professional sport of tennis is fascinating, and it's cool now with all these different like documentaries, docuseries, behind the scenes stuff with sports. You have Full Swing for golf, Breakpoint for tennis, F1, Formula One Drive to Survive was like the granddaddy of them all. It started it off. It launched all these other ones. They have receiver, quarterback. You get the behind the scenes look. You can see what these guys do during a whole year. They have a built-in off season, and it's cool. Tennis is a grueling, tough sport. If you're competing at the top level, you're competing 11 of 12 months of the year. A lot of them take the break around like the Thanksgiving, Christmas, that holiday time, because that's when the end of the tennis calendar is.
Okay.
They even get a month off.
Wow.
Right, where a lot of people, to your point, it's similar, more youth levels. You're going, in the fall you have a season, then you go indoor for winter, and then you have the outdoor season, then you have summertime, right? The great time to play some tennis. And you need to find that stopping point, because so often now, and I think part of it's that sports specialization piece is just like go, 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 go. and doing other sports, maybe taking a break and trying something different, picking up a recreational even hobby, it's going to be way more beneficial for you as an athlete because you're going to eventually, right? Research from
the research,
read and
yes.
studied, you're going to start getting all these overuse injuries and overloading injuries and stress fractures and tendinitis. And if you are working on doing different sports, even if you do that year round, where the research and studies more show is, you won't be getting that stuff. No. You're working out different muscle groups.
You're gaining more athleticism by using your body in different ways and challenging it in new ways. You're not just going through the same routines, the same motions. You're making yourself think about different things. So yeah, long term, it's pretty cool.
Gordon Hayward, former NBA star, was a star at also tennis in college.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Helped with his footwork, probably what made him a good, scorer back in the mid-range game back in the day with him when he was playing. The Jazz and the Celtics, Thunder. I'm probably missing a couple other teams, but yeah.
Take your word for it.
I don't know. Do you have any other examples you feel like pro athletes that have maybe done two sports? Because I think a lot of times when we think of these athletes, we've only thought of them in that capacity as doing one thing, but some of them are still really good in multiple sports.
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of football players were also baseball players, right? Russell Wilson. Wasn't Pat Mahomes like a baseball
Pat Mahomes,
player?
baseball prospect. We're probably missing a couple other ones.
I'm sure
Jameis Winston.
Tons out there.
He was in college doing baseball and football, I believe, back at FSU. There's tons of other examples that we're probably blanking on right now in this moment.
They still made it to where they are and are some of the best to do it. So it works. It pays off.
Kyler Murray. That was another one. Sorry. Thought of him.
There you go. But yeah, it's just important to have different elements to who you are and different things that make you the person that you are, whether it's a new sport, whether it's a new hobby. Like I have some athletes that also do like drama with their schools. They're in different departments and just exploring.
Very High School Musical of them.
Yeah, right? But just like exploring other things that make you who you are is just going to fill your cup a lot more and give you a lot more opportunity and fulfillment.
You'll feel fulfilled.
Yes. In the long run, right? You're not going to be a competitive athlete forever, so make the time to find other things that fill your cup.
Yeah. What were the biggest things you feel like you were doing, or like when you finally realized you need an off season, I guess? Do you feel like you were like go at one point and then it's like, shoot, I need to build in some time off?
Honestly, I don't think I realized it until I was done. Like, until my seasons, like my college career, like ended, it kind of hit me of like, how did I just survive the last 4 years? Like, I was in such, like, I don't know if it was like fight or flight, like autopilot, whatever it was. Like, I was such go, that by the time that I stopped, I was like, I don't even know what happened. And I think a lot of athletes can like think through their games. They can recall back like certain moments, certain plays and stuff. And I have a really hard time doing that. Like everything just kind of blurred together for me because I was just go all the time.
Yeah.
So looking back, I wish that I would have made more time to prioritize that, which is again why it's so important and why I preach that with my athletes, because like you're going to want to be able to look back and think about these things and know that you did everything that you could to play well, to be well, and feel good doing it. So I don't know. That was kind of my crazy time with it. But what about you? What was your big moment?
Tendinitis. Yeah.
Yeah.
The injury piece.
And even looking back now, like I had so many injuries too, but it was just like, oh, you just got to keep playing. Right. You just got to keep going. And they never healed. And they still bother me to this day. So yeah,
same. I think that's what's in my leg right now. It's tendinitis, the same one. So yeah, not that it's from that, it's from, probably me not doing the right things now that I'm older in my older aged body. But it's definitely when I first recognized it, I was like, go. And then all of a sudden I, had to stop at a practice one day. I was like, this is stinging. I was like, I'm done for the day. And then I went and got it checked out and they're like, all right, you in a boot for a month, or it's like, or you can, I was like, you can run on this? That's crazy. I was like, but then I don't want to shut it down for a month. You have to shut it down at some point.
Yeah. I mean, there was a point where I was getting cortisone shots in my wrist so I could finish out hockey season, just to get through.
Right.
But a little bit off topic, but I think this month is actually athletic training month. like National Athletic Training Month. So shout out to all the athletic trainers that help our athletes get through everything that they're doing. I know honestly all the time whenever I have something that like feels a little bit off or an injury that starts to flare up, I'm like, man, I wish, like, I so miss being able to just pop into the athletic training room and be like, hey, like, give me the heating pads, like give me the stim, like fix me up here.
Yeah.
So athletes, like, use that to your advantage, right? Lean on all of the resources that you have. Thank your athletic trainers. Because one day you will miss having that resource.
Yeah. And you might hopefully still be able to reach out to them and get some advice, but use it while you got it. And that's, I think, the biggest thing maybe with trying to figure out the transition to sports or off season, but it's, who is that support team that I have around me and identifying that, right? And it sounds a weird way to phrase it or think about it, but like family, friends, athletic trainers, personal coaches, private coaches, my actual coaches, whoever it may be, friends. So like just teammates, I think I said that one, teammates. So like thinking through that system of support that you can kind of rely on or go to, especially as you try to gear up and try to maybe develop an off season. Because that's eventually what I did. I was like, you can't really go the running piece year round. So around, like a professional tennis player, around the Christmas time and Thanksgiving, I would try to take a few weeks off. But I think that's the really important part. And I think that's why high schools try to build in the way the schedules are is, when you transition from fall to winter, typically that is around like Thanksgiving, and then, you get a couple weeks off. Same thing, winter to spring, then you get a couple weeks off. And then before coaches, I know, because there's a lot of restrictions on what they can maybe do in the summertime, depending on the state. That's where, spring to summer, they get it. You give your athletes a few weeks. I think that's a big thing is from a coaching perspective is you have to give athletes time. And I know in the NCAA, it's built in and regulated because otherwise they're like, hey.
24/7, you are mine.
Can't do that, right? No. Even when I was coaching NCAA, the Division III level for years, like I was like, we can do this or that, right? And they're like, no, mission violation. I was like, oh, okay, no, it's like this violation. What if we call it this? It's like that one works. You can have different activities, but these athletes need a break. They need time to kind of. This is my message to coaches, I guess, if you're listening. They need time, right? You need to give them that break in off season because they need it. And also, then to your point, you're not on autopilot. You can remember and reflect on these things because that's part of building a really good mental practice is being able to reflect on the games that you just played, the season you just had. What went well? What do I need to improve and carry into the next part of the training season and schedule? So.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And whether you're an athlete that doesn't have a structured off season, whether you're switching sports, whether you're just like ending your season and waiting, the reflection piece is going to be huge in making that transition, right? So whether it's having our end of season meetings with our coaches, right, recapping with them, what did I do well? What do you want me to work on? Where do you see me next year? Having all those conversations with your coaches is going to be a really important way to be able to kind of close the chapter on that season and then have some direction moving forward. So making sure you're wrapping up with them. Yes, Michael?
No, you can keep going.
Wrapping up with them, right? Maybe touching base with your parents if they're the people that are kind of helping you through this, right? Like, okay, what's ahead for us? How are we going to work this out together? What did you guys see this season? And having discussions with them. And then also doing a lot of self-reflection through that as well of like, how did I grow this season? What did I learn? What do I want to do next season?
Did I set goals for myself? Did I hit those goals? Did I do what I wanted to do?
Exactly.
If you aren't doing that, consider adding that piece.
Yes.
Contact
we love
us.
Goal setting.
Yeah. But the thing that's why I was raising my hand. I was going to wait for you to finish and you can call. But anyway, the thing I was going to say is what question should you ask maybe in an end of your coach's meeting? Some athletes might not know what to do. You have to meet with their coach and it's like, oh, cool. Is he just going to like yell and berate me or praise me or do this or that? But
hopefully not.
What questions do you feel like you should ask a coach if you have that end of your coaching meeting, whether high school, college, or pro?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different directions you can go with that, and especially depending on the relationship you have with your coach. But I think, I don't know.
It's a weird thing to ask.
I've had this conversation with so many of my athletes. Like we go through like role play almost of like, hey, what do you want to go in there? What do you want them to know? What do you want to ask? So again, it's asking like, what did you see from me this season? Like, what did you like? What can I work on? Right? What do you want me doing in the off season?
But I sucked at.
Yeah, right. What do I want to work on? We can frame it that way. Maybe even just like giving your opinion of like, hey, like I really liked how we did this season or next season, maybe can we do a little bit more of this, right? Because it is a collaborative relationship that you want to have with your coaches.
It should be a collaborative relationship, right? It should be a collaborative collaborative relationship if they're a really good and great coach. I think that's a piece, as a coach, I always wanted feedback too. I'd be like, what do you need out of me? Did I give you enough in performances or practices? What, like, as much as you go in there with the end of your meeting, sometimes it's like, it's for the athlete, but also, as a coach, right, we want that feedback or things. Or I think that's a really cool piece that the NFL does now in their off season. They release the team report cards.
Yeah,
right?
those are interesting to see.
Kind of that exact collaborative piece, a little bit of like, these are maybe, if you're a free agent, these are the rankings. These are maybe the better places to go. Where can you see improvements, right? So it's kind of cool to get that collaborative process going, because other questions you could ask, like you kind of just phrased there, but like what do you expect out of me in the future, out of next season? How can I maybe step up or improve, how can I do more? Or like we were kind of talking about a little bit before with our conversation, how can I maybe step back and do less where I'm not losing that edge or intensity or level that I'm at? Because, that's an important piece to this conversation, right? Right. Like we're talking about off season and trying to build a transition into season. What can you do to like take a couple weeks off? Or, right, which we'll get into hopefully in a second, like, if you don't know how to build an off season or what to do in off season, we'll get there in a second, but something to also ask as well.
Yeah, what is the off season?
What could I be doing in the off season?
Because sometimes we don't know. Like sometimes that's a learning experience, depending on what level of athlete that you are. So don't be afraid to ask those questions. Coaches want to help, want to provide direction. So definitely ask those questions. But if you are an athlete that's going into an end of season or end of year meeting soon, I would just really encourage you to have a plan going in. It might go to plan, it might not. You never know.
But being prepared is always important.
Yeah, like you don't really want to be that athlete that goes in and the coach is like, hey, like, what do you want to talk about? And you're like, I don't know. Like you want to go in with some questions, you want to go in with some prompts and something that you want to share or get out of it as well.
Or if the coach gave you prompts and things that you're supposed to do and you forgot.
Prep.
That's why the planner is important, people.
Yes. Know what you want them to know what you want to ask, and make it a productive conversation. That's what it's for.
Yeah. But nice. I think the next piece of this conversation, like I just said a little bit, alluded to before this, is how do I build an off season if I don't have one? Or how can I build my off season better?
How do you do that, Michael?
How dare you throw the question back at me?
You just threw one at me, so I was throwing it back at you.
It's clever. That's part of our techniques as coaches sometimes.
Turn it back.
Take it back. Take it back. No, I think for me, what I started doing, especially when I was injured maybe or just in general, was you can still go or be around a practice with people, right? If you feel like you're taking that time off, or you go and maybe you taper it down, from the physical side a little bit, or you could go and do more things like yoga, or there's stretch labs that are popping up all throughout the country. I feel like now, incorporate different like movements and things like that. It's definitely one way from the physical side. From the mental side, if you to build in a little bit of a mental off season type thing, you can, practice imagery and visualization, reflect on the goals like we were just talking about, maybe start setting goals, what you were trying to accomplish next season or in that off season, right? Because an off season period, it's not just about being off, but it's about like actively, how am I going to improve and get better for next year eventually at one point too. Yeah,
you're not sitting there like doing nothing necessarily. Like you're still working towards your goals and you're still making progress, just in different ways.
You need an active rest and recovery period at some point, right? It's not like you should take a little bit of a break, 1 or 2 weeks, and then start slowly getting back into it. But you can still, during that 1 to 2 weeks, it's not like you can still go for a run, a quick jog, you could walk, you could do all these other recreational things. Pickleball.
I was just going to say, I've had a lot of athletes picking up
do pickleball
lately.
Try it out.
Don't get hurt.
But don't kick off the people that are playing tennis. Leave them on. But the big thing I think too that you can do in your off season is, like I just said, there's all these different documentaries and docu-series that are out there. If you want to still be in that like sports realm a little bit with this, there's books that you can read. If you have a good book recommendation that we might not have read, drop it in the comments.
Michael loves reading.
I'm improving my reading. It's one of my things I would like to work on. My improvement areas. Don't stink at reading. Right? You can read, you can listen to podcasts, maybe you can incorporate just like different things from, your respective sport. I guarantee you there's so many podcasts out there, including ours. Follow, drop a like on our episodes, but you can start to kind of get all this different information of like, maybe like, what is this person doing that works well? Or this person I look up to or aspire and want to be like, what are they doing, right? How do they build their kind of off season? So
and it doesn't have to be your sport, right? It can be any sport. You can like check into different ones, different athletes, just like expand the like tunnel that you get into during your sport and look outside of it, and you can learn a lot from the people around you, the people that have done it before.
Yeah. Other off-season things, all the self-care stuff in the world.
Yes, do that. Do all of it.
Like
lots of
what?
it.
Reading.
Reading.
Learning a new hobby, art,
Yeah.
whatever it may be. Just playing some video
Yeah,
games.
going for walks, getting coffee with friends, right? Going out for breakfast, like
Doing
just,
the simple things better.
Yeah, the simple things that you tend to forget about or overlook when you're just in that grind of season. Make the time for it and
Go on
enjoy
vacation.
it. Yeah, that's always nice too.
It's a nice one, yeah,
Like
especially with the weather getting better.
Yeah. Spend time with your family, with your parents outside of the car ride or the field or whatever it is, right?
Or driving to everywhere and
Yeah, spend time with your family and enjoy it.
But I guess we would kind of maybe take this conversation a little bit next is how did you kind of approach, I know you talked about it a little bit, but how did you approach maybe this transition of sports seasons?
Like
a little bit.
Going in from like one sport to another.
One sport to another, because I know you did softball and hockey, and then maybe a little bit of golfing in there too, which is more
for fun, yes.
Yeah, for fun, exactly,
Yeah.
recreational
Yeah.
thing. So yeah, how did you kind of transition those seasons, or if you can remember?
Yeah, I'm trying to think
I don't know
back to
about
that
it. If
now.
not, I can take
don't
my own
know.
question first, maybe. But
I think just one of the things that I really enjoy is like the physical training part of things. So the lifting, the working out. So just like taking either like sport specific aspect out of it. So I'm not on the ice, I'm not on the field, but just like training in a way that I enjoy, right? Working on the athleticism, the strength, and just focusing on that because that's going to help me get to where I want to be, right? It's still going to help me as an athlete, but it's not specific from one sport to the next, but it's still going to translate. So I would just kind of focus on that for a little bit. I would, like we kind of talked about, I would recap my hockey season, right? So what just happened? What did I go through? Kind of think about that, process that. A lot of the time there's like an end of season or end of year like party or get together with your teammates too. So like that's kind of a good way to end, like to wrap things up a little bit and put
to have like an end point.
Yeah, to have an end point, right? So you can kind of use that as your transition of like, okay, this season's done. I'm still friends with these people. We still might hang out, but that season is done. Now I'm working towards the next. And then usually that started with setting goals for that next season. So shifting that focus from what just happened to, okay, this is where I'm at now. I know what happened last season, what I learned, and this is what I want to work on in this sport moving forward. So just kind of getting a little bit more dialed in and locked in of like, what is my direction now? And what do I want to do with that? So that's kind of how I tended to go about it. But what did you do?
Yeah, I geared up for the different weather, especially with running. But I think the really interesting time, maybe for me more so to maybe talk about and share a viewpoint on, is when I went into my senior spring season. So I just finished indoor track running. So I took a couple weeks off because, I was a senior, so,
You could
enjoy, have some fun and stuff. But I then did 2 sports in the spring season. So a lot of things. So I was like, I definitely know I need to take a break if I'm going to do this, because it was new in that year in Rhode Island. So it was really cool that I could do track and tennis in the same sport, same year. So I think for me, it was definitely like planning out how the heck is this going to work this year. The first thing obviously I did is I grabbed both schedules and I was like, is there any overlap? And there was one day there was overlap. So being ready for all the possibilities that happened with that. But that's why it was important and cool, because, and like you said, prioritize your sports, right? So for me, it was tennis first, then outdoor track. Like I had to declare a primary and a secondary sport. It was like picking a major and a minor at school almost. It was just fascinating. So that was like a big piece. But yeah, what did I want to do and accomplish in those seasons? What did I want to do in those final moments in seasons? Maybe a little bit too, maybe for some senior athletes that are struggling out there. If you don't, if that's it, this is the final wrap-up point. How do I make this a meaningful last season? What is that maybe legacy piece that you want to leave behind too in that, final kind of off season you might have? So
yeah, that's a great point when there's overlap, because I went through that too. Like obviously in youth sport when I was a little bit younger, there was more of a difference, but going into college, it was the same thing where hockey season and softball season really overlapped. So there was a couple years where literally like hockey season was still going. We were getting ready for playoffs. So the softball team would bus down to Florida. I would stay as long as I could for hockey. I would fly down and meet them there, and then I would fly and meet the hockey team wherever we were going for playoffs, which was like crazy times. It again came down to prioritizing, like, what can I make, what can I do?
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing that helped me get through that was you need to communicate with your coach. Like, you need to let them know where you're at and how you're feeling. And that's something that I struggled with. Like, I was trying to do everything all at once. I was trying to do 2 workouts and 2 practices and be at everything because I didn't want to be the teammate to like sit out and miss it.
Right.
But it got to the point where I was getting injured, I was getting sick, and I wasn't able to play. So then we kind of had to reevaluate of like, okay, if I have a game on Saturday for hockey, I'm not doing Friday's workout with softball, right? So being sure to communicate that with your coaches and with your trainers of what you need and what's going to let you thrive and still perform, and also stay sane through the chaos and through all of it, because it can get away from you really quick if you just kind of go through it.
Yeah, definitely. But the way that I used to prepare for the off season was I literally stopped. I took a break. I wasn't doing any sports. I was, focused on maybe I needed to boost the grades a little bit. Maybe I needed to just hang and chill with people, but like just to maybe enjoy it a little bit more is how I kind of approach that. But yeah, definitely the multiple sports, when things overlap like that, it's stressful. Which is why in college it's like, nah, I'm just gonna let's do the one sport. That's enough for me.
That was smart.
That's enough for me. I did like clubs and other things, so those overlapped maybe a little bit a couple times, but everything was usually always well handled, I feel. But trying to think.
Yeah,
Any other final points that you have with this one?
I don't know. I think that was all really good stuff. Just some of the like main takeaways, right? Is just creating that off season if you don't have it, or if you do have it, making sure you're using it effectively, right? So finding ways to change up your routine, find a new routine, try new things, do all the self-care, all the things that you need to do within whatever off season you have. Making sure we're reflecting and reviewing and wrapping up one season with our coaches, parents, with ourselves, and then making sure we're setting goals and planning ahead to that new season, so that way we can really jump in with some direction. And then if there is some crazy overlap, if we're playing multi-sports, taking care of yourself, talking to your coaches, communicating as best as you can, just to make the most of it and get through it.
Yeah. Organization, self-care, prioritization,
Using
right? It's all going to lead to fight the burnout. And if you still struggling, if you're still like, oh, that's kind of cool, helpful tips and advice, we do have our own off-season workbook that you can find on our website at sharpenskillstraining.com.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty in-depth. It goes through a lot of different aspects of this.
Yes,
so
very in-depth.
Definitely check it out if you're looking for something to
Gives
do
you
this
books.
off-season.
Yeah, it gives you books, podcasts, apps, resources, gives you self-care tips, things like that, how to do the structured goal setting piece like we said. So, but if you have questions, comments, thoughts, concerns, you can always drop a comment in our podcast or on our Instagram.
Yeah, we want to hear from you guys, so reach out.
I think that's all from us. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks.
See you next time.
Bye.
If you like what you're listening to, be sure to follow the Athlete Cafe on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. You can find us wherever you enjoy listening to your podcasts.